Imagine falling 6,000 meters from the sky. The wind is screaming, the air is freezing, the ground is rushing up to meet you at terrifying speed. You are not a god. You do not have wings. And the mythical winged horse that just carried you into the clouds is rapidly shrinking to a white speck above you. It is continuing its journey to the gates of heaven, without you. As you plummet toward the jagged earth, you have exactly 3 minutes to figure out how you, the greatest champion of the ancient world, ended up dying like a discarded stone. The answer is simple. You forgot your place. You thought you were a king of the cosmos, but you were only ever a weapon, and weapons that turn on their masters get broken. This is the story of Bellerophon, the mortal who achieved a flawless record of victory, conquered every enemy, and destroyed himself the second he ran out of targets. To understand his catastrophic failure, we have to look at the politics of his era. Long before Heracles was born, Olympus needed a mortal champion to clean up the earth. They found Bellerophon. He was physically perfect, but politically radioactive. His real name was Hipponos. But after accidentally murdering his own brother in a dark family dispute, he was branded a cursed man. Exiled from his home, he wandered as a beggar, desperately seeking asylum. He finally found it in the kingdom of Argos. King Proetus took him in and cleansed his blood guilt. But the royal court of Argos was a nest of vipers. Queen Antaya took one look at the handsome new exile and decided she wanted him. She cornered Bellerophon in the dark halls of the palace. "Take me," she whispered. "Take what is yours." Bellerophon backed away. "I will not betray the king who saved my life." But in the brutal politics of ancient Greece, rejecting a queen is a death sentence. Antaea's pride was shattered. If she could not have him, she would destroy him. She immediately ran to her husband, crying fake tears and tearing her own clothes. "Your guest tried to force himself on me," she screamed. "Kill him, or you are no man." King Proetus was furious. He wanted Bellerophon dead, but he had a massive political problem. Ancient Greek hospitality laws were absolute. You could not murder a guest who had eaten at your table. If you did, Zeus would personally curse your bloodline with madness. It was divine paranoia. So, the king engineered a loophole. He took a wooden tablet and sealed it with thick wax. Inside, he carved a single coded death warrant. "The man carrying this tablet assaulted your daughter. Execute him immediately." The king handed the sealed tablet to Bellerophon. "Deliver this to my father-in-law, King Iobates, in Lycia. It is a matter of utmost importance." Bellerophon, the loyal servant, took his own death warrant and marched for 9 days straight to Lycia. King Iobates welcomed the messenger with open arms. Following ancient protocol, Iobates threw a massive 9-day banquet before even asking why Bellerophon was there. On the 10th day, the king cracked the wax seal and read the execution order. The blood drained from his face. He was trapped. He had just fed this man for over a week. He was bound by the exact same hospitality laws. He couldn't kill him without inviting the wrath of Zeus. So, King Iobates designed an impossible labor. "I have a task for you," the king announced. "There is an unholy amalgamation destroying our western border. I need you to slay the Chimera." The Chimera wasn't just a monster. It was a divine punishment. A massive lion with a goat's head rising from its spine, and a venomous serpent for a tail. It possessed an internal furnace that breathed fire so hot it turned sand into glass. Entire legions of soldiers had marched into its territory and vanished into ash. It was a guaranteed death sentence. But Bellerophon didn't panic. He analyzed the battlefield. Fighting a fire-breathing beast on the ground was suicide. He needed the supreme vantage point. He needed Pegasus. Pegasus was a creature of pure myth, a winged stallion born from the severed neck of Medusa. Bellerophon tracked the beast to a sacred spring. Using a golden bridle forged by the goddess Athena herself, he forced the wild horse into submission. But here is a critical truth most myths ignore. Riding Pegasus was not a gift. It was physical torture. Flying at 6,000 meters causes severe hypoxia. The freezing air turns your blood to ice. It costs a mortal everything to wield divine power, but Bellerophon accepted the pain. He now had the ultimate combat advantage: altitude. He flew into Lycia and located the target, but he didn't draw his bronze sword. Bronze melts. Instead, he equipped his spear with a solid block of lead. He took Pegasus up into the clouds, staying well above the Chimera's lethal firing range. He initiated a massive dive. Approaching terrifying speeds, he aimed straight for the monster's roaring, fire-breathing mouth. At the last possible millisecond, he shoved the lead-tipped spear deep down the beast's throat and violently pulled up. The Chimera reacted instinctively. It roared, breathing a massive column of fire. The intense heat instantly melted the lead block. The molten liquid metal poured directly down the monster's throat, searing its internal organs and rapidly cooling into a solid mass inside its lungs. The unkillable terror of the ancient world choked to death on its own defense. Flawless victory. Bellerophon returned to the king and dropped the charred remains on the marble floor. The beast is dead. What's next? King Iobates was terrified. The suicide mission failed. He immediately issued a second order. The Solymi tribe is staging a violent rebellion on our borders. Wipe them out. The Solymi were the most brutal mountain warriors in the world, but Bellerophon didn't even draw his sword. Here is where the corruption began. He stopped treating his enemies like warriors and started treating them like insects. He took to the sky and lazily dropped heavy boulders on their camps, erasing their entire army in days without breaking a sweat. Iobates was sweating now. Fine. Go fight the Amazons. The Amazons were an elite, all-female military force that had never lost a war. Bellerophon didn't respect them either. He used the exact same effortless aerial tactics. He decimated their ranks from above, staying completely out of range of their legendary archers. He returned to the palace without a single scratch, entirely bored by the slaughter. King Iobates was out of options. The mortal simply refused to die. So, the king authorized a desperate betrayal. He took his 50 best royal guards, the absolute elite of his military, and hid them in a narrow canyon on Bellerophon's route home. When Bellerophon rode through, they attacked. It was a massacre. But not for Bellerophon. He didn't even use Pegasus. He dismounted just to feel something. He drew his bronze sword and slaughtered all 50 of the king's elite guards in brutal hand-to-hand combat. He didn't just defeat them, he made an example of them. Nobody survived. Covered in the blood of the king's own men, Bellerophon kicked open the throne room doors. He marched up to the trembling king. "Are you done sending men to die?" Bellerophon demanded. King Iobates finally broke. He fell to his knees and handed over the original coded tablet. "I was ordered to kill you by my own family, but clearly you are favored by the gods. I surrender." The king gave Bellerophon his daughter in marriage and signed over half the kingdom. Bellerophon went from a disgraced, exiled murderer to a massively wealthy king with a mythical winged beast. He had won the ultimate political game, and this is exactly where the psychological rot finalized. Here is a dark truth about human nature. When a mortal experiences an unbroken streak of absolute victory, their mind breaks. Competence mutates into supreme arrogance. Bellerophon looked at his vast kingdom. He looked at his flawless battle record. He looked at the kings bowing at his feet, and he asked himself a very dangerous question. If I am completely invincible, why am I taking orders from the sky? He stopped viewing himself as a mortal vessel. He genuinely believed he had become equal to the gods. The earth was suddenly too small for his ego. The worship of regular humans felt cheap. He wanted a seat on the ultimate throne. He wanted to rule Mount Olympus. "I am a god," he declared. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't offer a sacrifice to Zeus. He simply walked outside, mounted Pegasus, and pointed the horse straight up. He was going to launch a one-man coup against heaven. Up they flew, piercing the thick clouds. The air grew thin. The temperature plummeted. But Bellerophon was blinded by the fire of his own massive ambition. He envisioned the golden gates of Olympus swinging open. He envisioned Zeus stepping aside in fear. But from the highest peak of the cosmos, Zeus was watching. Zeus wasn't scared. The king of the gods did not view Bellerophon as a threat. He viewed him as a flawed design, a mortal champion who had forgotten his boundaries. When mortals rebel, the gods usually respond with theatrical violence. Earthquakes, plagues, massive lightning strikes. But Zeus understood the exact nature of Bellerophon's disease. To strike him down with a lightning bolt would be to acknowledge him as a worthy opponent. It would validate his delusion of grandeur. Zeus decided to teach the ultimate lesson in power. He wouldn't use his massive divine strength to stop the greatest warrior on Earth. He would use the smallest, weakest creature in existence. Zeus summoned a single ordinary gadfly. The tiny insect buzzed through the freezing upper atmosphere, landed right on the flank of Pegasus, and bit down hard. The sudden sharp pain sent the mythical horse into a violent panic. Pegasus reared back, thrashing against the golden bridle, bucking wildly in the thin air. Bellerophon, the master of war, was completely blindsided by a bug. His grip slipped, the reins tore from his frozen hands. Gravity took over. The fall lasted an eternity, 6,000 meters of free fall. The wind ripped away his titles, his wealth, and his arrogance. He hit the earth with the force of a falling star. By some cruel twist of fate, or perhaps by Zeus's direct calculation, the impact didn't kill him. Instead, it shattered his spine and permanently blinded him. Bellerophon survived, but his life was over. He spent his remaining years crawling blindly across the desolate Allion plain. He was a crippled beggar, avoiding all human contact, slowly chewing on his own misery, a shattered tool discarded by the masters he tried to replace. Back on Olympus, Zeus reviewed the failure. The flawless champion strategy was a mistake. Giving a human absolute physical dominance and an unbroken streak of victory only bred catastrophic arrogance. They forgot they were mortals. They became liabilities. If Olympus wanted to maintain control over the Earth, the next generation of heroes needed a total psychological overhaul. The next champion could not be allowed to experience unbroken victory. They had to be kept off balance. The next hero wouldn't get a kingdom or a winged horse. They would get pure trauma. They would be driven to madness, tricked into murdering their own family, and then assigned 12 impossible, humiliating labors just to earn the right to breathe. They would be so crushed by guilt and endless suffering that they would never have the energy to look up and challenge the throne. Zeus looked at his wife, Hera. "Make sure the next one suffers," he ordered. The new champion would be physically unbreakable but psychologically destroyed, and they would name him Heracles. If you want to see exactly how Hera shattered Heracles' mind and turned him into the most tragic weapon in history, hit the subscribe button right now. The true stories of Olympus are just getting started. I'll see you in the next video.